Welcome to Employee Termination Tips. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal. And in this particular video, we're going to be discussing a very strong indicator of underpayment of termination pay package to fired employees in the province of Alberta. And that strong indicator is vacation pay. When you look back at your earnings statements, your pay statements, your contracts, and what you're seeing the absolute minimum being paid to yourself in vacation pay. That being 4% of yearly wages in the first 4 years of your employment and 6% after the fourth year. And what shows up on the statement appears to be the absolute minimum, whether it's 4% or later on 6%. The fact of the matter is that oftentimes is a very strong indicator. It's not an absolute that there is a discrepancy there or there's discrepancies elsewhere, but it begins to paint a picture of, number one, that your former employer has been effectively trying to keep his costs to a minimum and potentially violated employment standards legislation in the process, number one. And number two, it shows that the intention is not to protect you and provide you up to benefit. It's to minimize. And when you try to minimize to the degree that many employers have done, both during the course of one's employment and upon their termination, they are susceptible to making significant errors. And these errors are more pronounced when it comes to certain areas that we have discerned. And one of them is the area of vacation pay. Given the fact that vacation pay is determined differently in the province of Alberta versus the province of Ontario. And unfortunately for employees, and also technically for employers, unbeknownst to them, a lot of the calculations are being derived out of Ontario headquarters or using Ontario-based software or Ontario input, and they're making clear calculation mistakes because the legislation for employment standards and the calculation formulas are different between these two provinces. And this has an impact. And it therefore gives you a legal basis to move forward. And if you're starting to make errors with respect to vacation pay, which is one of the more discernible ones you might see, then we get into errors with respect to termination pay in lieu of notice. We get into mistakes with respect to overtime and a whole range of other issues. And the benefit from the legal standpoint is that once you run into issues and you have clear statutory backing for it, then you have a viable case to move forward. And it's not some claim that as to interpretation. What you're looking instead at is there's no basis or challenge to interpretation. It's straight out, this is what the law is, you violated the law, and then you work from there. And that is how you build a solid legal case against your former employer. You don't want to be wishy-washy, you want to be clear. And that is why starting off with vacation pay, especially in a province like Alberta, you want to be looking at, is your employer just working with the absolute statutory minimums of 4% and afterwards 6%? Because if they are, there's a strong likelihood, based on analysis that we've done, that once you get into those minimums, you're actually below the minimums when you actually calculate things properly. They might be calculating things correctly, but dollars for donuts, there's a good possibility they are not calculating correctly because they aren't lawyers and they haven't analyzed it, and they rely, like everybody else does, on the internet and other so-called professionals, but based out of province. So that's an excellent starting point to look at and say, maybe there is something more to this. Maybe I should go talk to a lawyer because now I might be able to have a solid foundation to my case. Naturally, there's other aspects that we can discern, but the whole thing is you have to bring it before the lawyer, let them analyze it, assess it, and advise you as to whether or not there is something to pursue and what the strength of the case is. And strength of the case, especially when you have a good foundational underpinning like clear statutory violations, are important to moving your case forward. Thank you.